This short presentation is primarily intended to help you to understand and complete the mobility assessment, which is a requirement for every student undertaking an international mobility experience as part of their University of Galway degree programme. I will start by outlining the purpose of the mobility assessment, and I'll explain what the student declaration is. I will take you through a short requirements checklist and then outline the topics covered in the mobility assessment. Then I will walk you through the mobility assessment step by step, and I'll finish with some information about insurance. In planning your mobility period, you have both autonomy and responsibilities, and the mobility assessment aims to reflect this. It's a straightforward online form that every outbound student must complete prior to travel. In it, you are asked to give due attention to relevant factors, in particular risks and personal safety. At the end of the mobility assessment are 2 questions related to the student declaration. The student declaration sets out the requirements in relation to academic performance, conduct, your fitness to take part in an international experience, insurance, and assessing risk in relation to your destination country or city. In making the declaration, you confirm that you understand and will comply with these requirements. You don't need to print out and sign the declaration. Instead, you effectively sign it by answering yes to the relevant questions at the end of the mobility assessment. For every student taking part in mobility, the following items are mandatory. Firstly, you must complete a mobility assessment, which will involve carrying out your own research to answer some of the questions relating to safety and risks with regard to your study abroad destination. You then submit the form online for approval by the College of Arts. You'll be required to review and sign a student declaration, confirming that you understand your responsibility of due diligence, for instance in regard to health, insurance, finances and travel-related risks, as well as what is expected of you in relation to academic performance and good conduct abroad. You'll be required to hold a valid insurance policy and to understand where any exclusions may apply, and you'll be required to attend at least one pre-departure briefing, in person or virtually. The mobility assessment is designed as a prompt for you to ensure and confirm that you have appropriately considered your own needs, your travel arrangements, health factors, including public health, local and regional conditions, and the study and/or work environment that you are going to spend time in. The mobility assessment is completed by means of an online form, and a link for this will be sent to you by email. You should complete it as soon as you know your departure date, but certainly no less than 2 weeks before you're due to travel abroad for your mobility period. As you can see, the first few questions are very straightforward. In question 5, you'll be asked to indicate which University of Galway programme you're registered on. Please give the programme name in words rather than writing a code. And please be sure to answer yes to question 6 because your mobility period is a credit-bearing part of your University of Galway study programme. Next, we ask for the name of your host university or your host organisation abroad. The start date is the date when you're required to begin attending the university or the place of employment, not the date of your arrival because you've already given us that. The end date will be the end of semester or end of exams or the last date of your employment. If you'll be on a work placement, please describe very briefly what kind of work is involved. In the contact section, we ask you to provide the details of a person that you would wish us to contact in the event of an emergency. Please make sure to inform the person that you have named here and obtain their permission before sharing their contact information on this form. Now we ask about your travel arrangements. We need to know from what town or city you're departing, what's your final destination, and how will you get there, and please don't forget to mention the dates of your travel. It's very important that you consult the web pages shown here to find out what is the Department of Foreign Affairs guidance for your destination, not only in relation to its security status and possible COVID-related restrictions, as per the questions here, but because you will also find lots of useful tips and advice for each country, which you should take the time to read in full, clicking through the various headings such as security, local laws and customs, health, and other information. In the Know Before You Go country by country section, you'll also find the address of the Irish Embassy or Consulate responsible for your destination country. And in larger countries, you'll find that there are also Irish representations or consulates in cities or regions outside of the capital city, and these might be closer to where you're going to be based. You're asked to note the details here because you might need to call on them if you ever need consular assistance while abroad. And this is why, if you're an Irish citizen, we strongly recommend that you register your contact details online with the Department of Foreign Affairs. This will be useful if, for instance, you need assistance in an unforeseen situation such as being the victim of a serious crime or having your passport stolen. suffering a serious illness or a family emergency, or some situation where your family needs help in contacting you. Consular assistance would also be relevant if you were in a dangerous situation due to some crisis like a natural disaster or civil unrest. Do remember that if, for example, you're going to Spain, what's required is the Irish Embassy or an Irish consul in Spain, not the Spanish Embassy in Dublin. This is an error that a number of students have made in the past. All of this, of course, applies only to Irish citizens, and if you're not an Irish citizen, just leave question 19 blank and tick not applicable under question 20. Now we're asking you to consider the health aspects of your mobility period. Please read carefully the relevant section of the Student Declaration and reflect on it before answering the questions here. If you have any concerns, you might want to find out what supports may be available to you in your destination country and at your host university or host organisation. There may also be public health factors you need to consider. Once again, consult the Department of Foreign Affairs travel advice and check whether there are any particular public health concerns for your destination country that you should know about. If there are public health concerns or guidelines, consider and note how these might affect your plans. You need to make sure too that you're fully aware of any public health rules or recommendations that apply at your host university or organisation or in your host country. For instance, in some countries, mask wearing is still a requirement on public transport. Finally, do read any WHO guidelines for your host country. Now we come to location and regional factors. Consider the questions here with reference to the Department of Foreign Affairs travel advice, as well as your general research into your host country, including any relevant news reports. While most COVID-related restrictions have now been lifted, you do need to consider how your learning objectives and experience would be affected if remote learning or working was once again to be introduced temporarily. Now consider any other risks or issues of concern to you which could affect your well-being, safety, or mobility experience, and if necessary, note them here. You are required to attend a pre-departure briefing as part of your preparations for going abroad. You may have attended an in-person event, but if not, you may alternatively view the video that is available on the College of Arts Study Abroad page as per the email that you'll receive about the mobility assessment. Now we come to the Student Declaration. Please read it carefully. Make sure you review and understand your responsibilities around academic requirements, conduct, your health, your safety, and your insurance, and indicate your agreement by answering yes to the questions here. You must purchase private travel insurance to cover you for the period while you're on mobility abroad. As described in the pre-departure briefing, every outbound student must identify and purchase appropriate private travel insurance that includes cover for accidents, medical and emergency treatment, personal liability, cancellation and curtailment, and repatriation. Students should ensure that they're adequately insured in respect of their personal baggage, personal effects, and money. The policy must be valid for the entire period of your stay abroad. You should check whether any exclusions apply and make sure you're happy with them. Check, for instance, if there are any stipulations about the duration of a single trip. In this regard, multi-trip or backpacker policies for students on mobility can be a sensible option. However, do remember that having private travel insurance does not mean that you don't need to consider and manage risk. It's your responsibility to identify a suitable policy and to be familiar with its terms and conditions. Make sure you understand the scope of the cover and any possible limitations. The final section of the mobility assessment concerns your accommodation abroad. The University of Galway is obliged to keep a register of overseas students that includes their addresses in their host countries. If you already know where you're going to be staying during your mobility period, please give the address here. If not, leave this section blank and we will be in touch with you later. Finally, please check your email for a link to the mobility assessment form and make sure to complete it as soon as you know your travel dates and certainly no less than 2 weeks before you're due to travel. I'll also send you a link to the International Travel Toolkit, which includes a useful pre-departure checklist. If you have any questions, please do feel free to contact me, Mary Lyons, your College of Arts Mobility Officer. Thank you.